Hello everyone, how are you? Happy Friday. So today we're talking about the secret to changing eating behavior for good. So I'm Kelsie Michaud and I help people gain control of emotional eating so that they can feel healthy and confident as they make peace with food and their body. So today, as we talk about the secret to changing your eating behavior, I just wanted to let you know too that I am still available for complimentary consultations. I have a couple spots open this week if you'd like to just jump into one of those, and we can talk about, maybe where you're at right now, and maybe if you're feeling a little stuck or frustrated with your weight or your goals, and I can show you how I can take you from where you are now to where you'd like to go. So if anyone would like to jump into one of those spots, just you can PM me. You can click my link, which is above the video, and book yourself right in directly, whichever way works for you. Hi, Judy. Thank you for coming on with us. So let's dive right in. So, we know that changing our eating behaviors in a way that's going to be just long lasting can be really, really hard. Hi, Lynn. How are you? So, is there really hope for you to ever just change your eating behavior, especially when you've gotten to a point where you just get stuck and frustrated and you don't know what else to do, and you jump from diet to diet and you're not sure where to go next? Well, it is totally possible. I know this because I've done it. It didn't happen overnight, that's for sure, but it did happen. And to do it, you have to understand what is driving your desire to change. So, for myself, I wanted to be a healthier version, but for reasons that went beyond that. Hi, Callie, how are you? Thanks for coming on. So, like with diabetes and cancer running in my family, and, I certainly never want to be diagnosed with any of that. And, just as I'm getting older now, and I want to feel good, rather than just that like sluggish or tired feeling, the way that, processed foods can do that to you. Plus, I have children. I have two daughters that, I want to have energy for, and I not only need that energy, but I want to have that energy for them. And, I slowly transitioned to less processed and more whole foods, in a way that was just, it was easy and it was natural because I took my time with it. Because when you want to rush something or go from one thing and to go to something that's completely opposite of what you're doing, making a big change like that can be hard and overwhelming. And then you end up kind of getting frustrated and kind of just throwing in the towel and saying, this is too difficult, or I just don't feel like it, I don't want to do this. But by taking your time with it and going slowly, you're giving your body time to adjust, which I totally did over time. So, but that's not to say that I don't enjoy pizza or ice cream or a glass of wine. It's all about balance. And if I can do it, you can do it too, because my clients have as well. So in our culture, we have two main motivators for people making changes to why they eat. And one is wanting to be good, and two is to look good, right? We all want to look good and feel good in our clothes. So, would you agree with that? Both tend to motivate us in the beginning, but they never seem to hold up for long. And I'm going to tell you why. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for joining us. So let's talk about wanting to be good. So I believe, more than ever before, that eating has become such a moral behavior. How many times have you heard the phrase a sinful indulgence, especially when talking about food? And really, like, since when is chocolate a moral issue? So foods have just been labeled good or bad for so long, for just such a long time. And unfortunately, that type of black and white or good or evil labeling of food just, extends it to the people that are eating it too, because if you're not eating clean, then you're considered dirty. But that's not right. This is just a twisted way to look at it. Hi, Stacy. How are you? Thanks for coming on. So it's, if if you're not eating clean, that's so just a backwards way of thinking. So especially when your eating behavior becomes about like who you are and not just what you're putting in your mouth. So this is especially true for people who are, dealing with things like the stigma of having larger bodies. And there is actually a myth, if you live in a larger than average body, that you have somehow failed. But if you're motivated to change your behavior because of shame that has been just instilled in you, then you're actually looking for acceptance from others. So, but what you're really needing here is acceptance just from yourself. You need to be good to yourself, be kind to yourself, and accept yourself first. So it's a lot harder to take care of yourself when you are just not caring about yourself. So more often I'll see people punishing themselves with food, just one way or the other, either with too much or not enough, especially when they feel like they have maybe failed in some way. And then that shame, whether it's from like inside yourself or from others, that's not a good way to try to motivate yourself. Hi, Jody. Thanks for joining. So that's because a natural response to shame is anger. We get angry, we get upset with ourselves, and then we beat ourselves up for it. And getting mad and rebelling is it's one way that the powerless and shamed, can end up feeling more powerful. So some will call it rebellion. You can think of it being like rebellious to yourself. And some will say it's just sabotage. We do self-sabotage ourselves. But it's that inner drive that tells you you can when everyone else tells you you can't. And that's what's important. So if you think about it, we have been sold out to that $65 billion food diet, and that diet industry they're sending us the message that we can't trust ourselves with food. And then if they're saying that we need to pay them to tell us how to eat, when we have these rules that are just they're throwing rules at us. And then we say, oh, I can eat anything I want, and I will, because it's a natural response. But that only reinforces that shame we're trying to desperately get away from. Does that make sense? Let me know if you have any questions as I'm going along. Pop them in the comments for me. And let's move on to wanting to look good. We all want to look good, right? It's a natural part of our being. So the second big reason that people usually want to change their eating habits, like I said, is to look good. And that definition of good is usually driven by our society's thin ideal. That notion that thinness defines beauty and health. I mean, if you think about it, we look at just media, look at everything they show us on TV and at the checkout counter, at the grocery store, in the magazines. And, you have to remember, especially those magazines, they're airbrushed. So they send us these false images of what they make us feel like we should be. And as a result of that, there's too many of us trying to change our body size or our weight. And sometimes we do it in a way, or just in the name of health, because we're routinely told that we need to lose weight to be healthy. But when we make the plan to do that, it's usually not a time when we're hungry. So we usually start to plan because we have some kind of social event coming up, or maybe a wedding to go to. You want to look your best. And, whichever causes us to start counting calories or start counting points, or how many daily steps we've taken, we just start getting more into that kind of thing when we've taken these steps to help our course of action along the way, because we know we have something important coming up that we want to look good for. Hi, Danielle. Thank you for coming on. So when we start out on our plan, we usually start out great, right? We usually start out with a bang. So, we end up getting to a point, unfortunately, where we become totally stressed out with having to start, the bang that we started off with, because it gets to be too much. Let's see. Hold on. I think I have a question here. Where'd it go? Come back up. It's sliding all over the place. Let's see. Jody says, so true. When you're full, it's so easy to, yes, that's when it's a lot easier to plan a diet. When you're not hungry, when you're not starving, and you're not having cravings, it's much easier to say to yourself, because that usually happens, like say, maybe a Sunday night after you've binged all weekend, and then you feel awful, you feel like crap, and you're like, all right, that's it. I'm getting back on it tomorrow, Monday morning. I'm on it. I'm doing this. No more excuses. Well, you're not hungry at that point because you just stuffed yourself all weekend. So yes, it is a lot easier to plan it out. But if you are planning it out, that's still good. Still pat yourself on the back for that, because that's still a step in the right direction. You are trying, and don't forget that. It's all those little things along the way that we need to remember to recognize ourselves for. So let's see. Okay, so I get off track sometimes. I lose my train of thought. But so when we start out, yes, we do great, and then sometimes we get a little overwhelmed sometimes. And the thing is, we can't effectively use our executive brain function. That means like the parts that are able to reason with ourselves, and weigh the evidence out to make those fact-based decisions during those difficult moments. Our brain will default to like neutral pathways that have been put there by fear and any other emotions that we're feeling. So we end up giving in because we're not thinking about our new 12-week goal. We're thinking about just surviving right now in that very moment. So as for that new plan, we'll start again tomorrow. So the thing about that is that we are, we're in our right mind again, but then we start kind of recalculating. But the more that we get like diet fatigued, like I said, you get stressed out and you get overwhelmed. The longer we get diet fatigued, the longer it takes us to gain enough energy to go back and get on that wagon again. So, is that something that, like, are you wanting to feel good? I mean, I'm sure that you are. I'm sure that that's part of your reasoning behind wanting to get back on that wagon. You want to feel good. So if the motivations of wanting to be good and look good, if they don't work for you in the long run, well, what is going to work? So, when it comes to our behavior change, science actually tells us that our intrinsic motivation is key here. And that's motivation that comes from within us. It's internally driven by what is most important to you. So this confused me actually for some time, because I would think to myself, well, my health is important to me, so why is that not enough to motivate me? Then someone asked me, when do you know you are healthy? When the doctor tells you? No, I know it when I feel good. So that's an example of your external motivation. Knowing when you feel good and wanting to do what's needed to keep you feeling that way is an example of intrinsic or your internal motivation. So unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are just so disconnected from their bodies, either by shame, that they just don't know when they feel good or when they feel bad, because they're not taking the time to slow down and stop and tune into their own body and what it's telling them. So how are we going to reconnect with our own body and our mind? Well, the pathway to reconnecting to your body and your internal motivation is through mindfulness. So, like I said, slowing down and listening to yourself and listening to your body and how it feels and how it's reacting to certain things, that's part of being mindful. So when we can be still and be present in the very moment without any judgment, we can listen to our bodies, and it will give us this internal feedback for the answers that we really are looking for. So, we can watch our thoughts and sense our emotions. We're both like, we're just this form of like a well-being. And the next step is to just simply observe how our behaviors make us feel throughout our daily lives, just from day to day. So that's when we find it easier to repeat those behaviors that make us feel good. Because when you're doing it on a regular basis, you're starting to rewire your brain, you're starting to rewire your thinking, and then you're starting to change those habits little by little and guide yourself towards the better choices. Does that make sense? Let me know if you have any questions, like I said, as I'm going along. So, we can notice that some foods that we eat, especially in certain amounts or the combinations that we eat them in, maybe at certain times they either make us feel good or they don't make us feel so good. So I notice this every time I eat, every single time. And I've learned that, I've totally learned what works for me and what's going to work against me, because I feel it within my body, because I'm listening to what's going on. And you have to remember that we have a choice about what we eat and when we eat it, and that no one but our own bodies is going to tell us what to do. If you listen, your body will tell you. So when you do begin to feel better, then you can move more, you have more energy, you can even begin to sleep better and just feel more rested. And then you'll be giving your body the chance to just fully detox at night and have less cravings the next day. And, doesn't that sound so good? Doesn't that feel good? Because if your body doesn't feel good, then what are you left with? If that doesn't feel good to you, all this energy and power that you can give yourself, then what does, really? So just by simply pausing and noticing our awareness of our behaviors that makes us feel good, pick up on that and remember that. And that way you can create a new reward pathway in your brain. So then you want it to say, oh yeah, this feels good. I'm feeling good now. When practicing mindfulness, you could focus your attention to be on things that make you feel good each and every day. So just take it moment by moment, and your reward becomes that like twinkly little lights throughout your day that are lived just moment by moment, rather than putting pleasure on hold until we finally allow for it at the end of the day. And then we end up overindulging as our reward. And that's where you end up overeating, and that certainly doesn't make you feel good. Especially not, in the long run or for the long term. So as we tune into the clarity of our thoughts and our energy that we get from having our blood sugar balanced, which is key here, we begin to feel good, and then we can just better experience a more like joyful, less stressed life. So you want to, just develop trust in yourself and the food that you're eating, because people feel good when they are getting just the most basic needs met. And a lot of times we forget about that, and we're not giving ourselves just those little basic needs that we really, really do need. So if we are really feeling good about our decision making regarding our eating behavior, we simply will eat in a way that makes us feel good. Hi Leslie, thanks for coming on. We're just talking about how to change our behaviors today, and it's here in this space where we are making decisions based on our competence, not shame. And then we have access to all of our executive functioning, which is going to allow us to be able to pause and make decisions rather than just act out of habit. So let me know if you have any questions about everything that I just covered, as far as, going over and making habit change. And remember, it's those small little changes along the way that are going to turn into those big habits for you in the end. And just as a reminder, I am still available for complimentary consultations as we're rounding out the end of our week here. And that's where I can just show you how I can take you from where you are now to where you'd like to go, if that's something you would like to dive a little further in, deeper into, as far as your health and weight goals go. And if you have any questions about your health and weight goals, please feel free, pop them in the comments, PM me. And if there's anything else that you have on your mind that you'd like to hear more about or learn more of, let me know that too. And I can get more of that out there for you. So I hope everyone has a very beautiful day and a wonderful weekend too. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye guys.